Okay, some notes on dietary modification for patients with dysphagia, which we'll link through to the work we'll do in the lab. There's another presentation on the lab work, which you should also access. As well, we'll be covering what I'm saying in the presentation is also reflected in the notes section of the slides, and there will also be a video or two available depending how long it goes. If this goes on for more than about 10 minutes, I'll probably break it into a second video, and there'll be some videos available via a playlist. Okay, so dysphagia, I'm sure you've heard about it. It's the medical term for swallowing difficulties. See this NHS link for some general background on this, but obviously there's more academic background available in this. I should point out generally when there's an image appear, it normally links through to something, but the links are also in the notes pages as well. Summary of the main causes of dysphagia. Although strongly linked to an ageing population, some children also have these issues. It's estimated that dysphagia can occur in up to 30% of people aged over 65 years. The table here shows the approximate incidence of dysphagia for certain clinical conditions. However, it doesn't include every condition. Again, if you click on the link, you'll get more background reading. The factors, so we're going to talk about factors involved in chewing and swallowing, which again links through the practical work we'll be doing. The factors here are well defined. It can be measured in foods using the equipment we'll be using in the lab. These are the distinct stages of chewing and swallowing, and again you can get more academic information on this from a range of sources. In most cases, is it carried out without conscious thought. For some people, however, such as those with issues around dyslexia, the process can be difficult and close attention needs to be paid to the texture of foods. Here are some of the technical descriptions of food mouthfeel. Many of these will be familiar words, but in all cases rather, they all have specific technical definitions allowing them to be measured. I'm not going to read these as we go through them. You can do that yourself. You can pause the video and look at the presentation. You might want to start thinking about which foods these descriptions would apply to, and maybe thinking about whether they're appropriate for people who have swallowing difficulties. So tenderness is a word you've come across, brittleness, I guess, crisps and things like that. Again, have a read of this if you're interested. Elasticity, and a key one for us, which is adhesiveness, or the work of adhesion. Food sticking to a surface. And a few other ones, viscosity, gumminess and springiness. Okay, so here's a little exercise. Stop the video and list foods which you think fit these descriptions. There may be some foods that fit more than one description, of course. So I'll pause for a moment and take a breath, and then we'll come back. Okay, I've assumed you've had a think about that. Pause the video, we've stopped the presentation. We'll move on. Here are some examples. Carrots are obviously hard and crunchy. Tofu, I think that is there, is a bit chewy. Oranges are juicy. Just a few examples. Texture profile analysis. This is often referred to as the 2-bite test. Here the texture analyzer mimics the action of chewing food. And this is what we use. Some very good information available on this. Kim's got a very good video. Kim, our food lab technician, has got a very good video on using it, doing our Jaffa Cakes experiment, where we answer the question, are Jaffa Cakes cakes or biscuits, which is outside the scope here, but it's an interesting question. The video is available. It's in Panoptos, so you might need to be logged into TU systems to access it. If you also click on the link, this will take you through to Brookfield's website, where you can read up more on information on the machine we actually use. We've now got a couple of these. With large numbers of food students, we needed to buy some more of them. So the 2-bite test, it does what it says. It compresses the sample twice, and we get information on the force that the food exerts on the probe. This is mimicking chewing and behaviour. And correlates well with sensory evaluation results. So sensory evaluation is effectively taste testing, if you will. So see Kim's video if you haven't already. During the TPA test, the probe descends and makes contact with the sample. When a minimum trigger force is achieved, the probe descends for a set distance at a specific speed. The probe then returns to its original position and then waits for a specific time before making its second descent for another reading. It's important for the wait time between the first and the second compression test is not too long or too short. If too long, the food may fully recover, making the first and second reading appear the same. Alternately, if the wait is too short, it will not allow time for the material to recover sufficiently. All of this is taken account of by the software that runs the actual equipment. So the processing stage is the first bite and the second bite. Crispy foods produce a characteristic texture profile, and the software uses this to measure this characteristic. And there's a definition there of what exactly we mean by fracturability. Similarly for hardness, note here that the maximum force is achieved at the first bite. Sensory testers may experience a degree of crunchiness, crumbliness or bitterness. So cohesiveness is the extent to which a material can be deformed before it ruptures. An example there using pasta, cooked pasta it has to be said, rather than dry pasta which would just fracture. Again, the system performs this calculation based on the ratio of the two areas shown to the curve here. So the machine does the calculations for us. Bounce back ability. When the deforming force of the probe is released, how quickly does food regain its original condition? And again, down here there's the formal definition. Springiness. A classic example of springy food would be marshmallows. Springiness is the degree to which the food returns to its original height after being compressed. It is calculated as the ratio of the two distances shown, again by the machine. And chewiness is a calculation based on the product of gumminess and springiness, and whether it's originals, presumably a good example of chewiness. Adhesion is something which is important to us. Adhesion and adhesiveness are two key characteristics can be determined by the 2-bite test. Food can be sticky to surfaces, including the palate and other mouth parts, and that's what we're interested in particularly in terms of dysphagia. That's just reiterating the same information, I think. So we'll have a brief look at the probes we use. There's a range of different probes which you use depending on what food you use. We do all sorts of things. There's bread shown there. We use yogurt. We use crisps. Lots of different probes are available. And again, the machine is set up to use the appropriate probe in the appropriate way and give you the results. So I think we'll have a short. I'll continue this. The video's not too long, so I'll continue this. Foods for dysphagia. Foods for dysphagia are technically sophisticated, meeting standards for both nutrition and texture. The latter to ensure they are safe for the patient to consume. And there's some characteristics which are required. They need to be easy to swallow depending on the person's ability to swallow. They often have to deliver large amounts of nutrition in a small package, as well as help them maintain hydration. Thinners, which are often starch-based and used to provide confidence flow characteristics in liquid foods. See the X-ray image for a video reviewing these issues. It eventually goes on to talk about American standards, which aren't really necessarily appropriate for what we're interested in, but it's got some good stuff on swallowing there. The Dietary framework. This provides a common terminology to describe food textures and drink thickness, and it's hugely important. It's internationally used every day by dietitians. The Dietary framework is a continuum of 8 levels, 0 to 7, where drinks are measured from level 0 to 7, with level 0 being entirely fluid, while solid foods are measured from levels 3 to 7. If you click on the image again, it will take you through the full background, which I think we'll have a look at. So this is from the IDSI website, which is a great resource, well worth having a look at. This is only a couple of years old, but we're starting to be seeing quite a lot of information being published in the scientific literature as well on the delivery and effectiveness of this approach. So it's got the IDSI framework, the old IDSI framework actually is a new one which is available, which have a look at, and lots of other information. So have a look at that as a good starting point. This is the new form, which I will include in the notes associated with this. So it describes what the various levels of food are, and it's also got some instructions on how to do the testing. I'll link through some videos as well, which will give you some idea on how we do this, because this is something else we'll be doing in the lab probably. Here's some typical results for adhesive force and adhesion dysphagia foods. Now these are box and whisker plots. If you don't know what they are, you might want to have a look at them, what a box and whisker plot is. If it isn't very clear, you can click on the image and it'll open up a Tableau Public interactive visualization, which we'll have a look at. Right, so what we've got here is the information for various components of a meal. So we've got them all at the moment. If we're, for example, only interested in carrot, we could just only bring up carrot. Or meat, compared to meat. Meat's quite a good one, but we'll bring up all of them. And we'll notice that there is a wide range here. So this is the average. We repeated this result several times. We did the 2x test on, in this case, I'm not sure what that one is, potato. That's potato, isn't it? It says at the bottom, potato. And got a number of results and then averaged them, and that's the average there. This is the upper centiles, the lower centile, and these are the extreme measures. The point about this is there is a wide range here. There's a wide range down here for potato, whether it was measured by adhesive force or adhesiveness, which can be a problem. If we create a meal which is IDSI level 4, and we discover in cooking that in some cases it turns to IDSI level 5, that may cause specific problems for a person trying to eat it who is incapable of eating that level. We'll notice for carrots there's much less variability, similar for meat and various other things. When we do the lab, and we'll talk about this in a separate presentation, we'll look at two different methods of cooking, one by microwave and one by oven cooking. We'll continue to expand our results on this. Issues with hospital food. Hospitals rarely have proper kitchens these days. They often don't have ovens, they just have microwaves. The locations where meals might be regenerated, that is heated up in a microwave, may be a long way from where patients are, with potential impacts on the texture of foods for dysphagia. For more background, click on the various images, including links to a Northeast company, which is a big impact in this market, and we have pretty good links with. There's a YouTube video from them as well, well worth having a look at. So again, here's an example meal at IDSI level 5. Each of these ingredients must have the same texture level after cooking, whether it's done by microwave or traditional oven, but is that the case? Data we've collected so far suggests this may not be the case. This is the method we want to use broadly. Again, look at the other presentation. Identical meals will be regenerated, cooked by two methods, and then their texture is measured over time. The food lab technician will do this just before we go into the lab. So the microwaved meals and the oven cooked meals will be ready at the same time. We'll also test them for safety, although we won't be doing any tasting, but that's just due diligence, of course. And then we're going to measure their texture over a period of time and see how it changes. More details on the method here. We'll measure it in intervals of 15, 30 and 45 minutes, and we'll look at adhesiveness, and if possible replicate the measure 3 times and see if there is any effect on the IDSI level of the food, or the texture anyway, based on what happens over time. And this is a really interesting question. And we know it does have an effect. Here's some student results from last year. This table summarises the changes in adhesive force in several meals regenerated by the two methods, with adhesion measured immediately after regeneration, then 15 minutes later. We notice in some cases the texture of the meal increases, in other cases it decreases. Now the increase in one, as I mentioned earlier on, could be a bit of a problem, so this is something we are interested in looking at. Again, these are results for adhesiveness, and again there's a lot of variability, and these results suggest there is need for a lot more work in this area to understand what is happening, which we'll look at when we look at the lab method in the next video. Okay, thanks for listening.